Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to start the CCATO Fall Conference. It's really glad to be back here in person. It's been a little while. I'm Steve Alaban. I'm Township Supervisor for New Garden Township as well as the CCATO President. We're going to start off with a presentation about the emergency services crisis and what we are going to do about that. I'd like to introduce Chaz Brogan and have at it.
Thank you. We'll get started here. My name's Chaz Brogan. I'm the Interim Executive Director from Good Fellowship Ambulance and EMS Training Institute in Westchester. That is my full-time job. In addition to that, I am the elected President of the Chester County EMS Council. I'll shout out to my group from West Whiteland here. They got to hear me lecture them on this last night, so I probably owe them a cocktail here by the end of the night. So we're here to talk about emergency services specific to here in Chester County. And in case you're not aware, we are in crisis. I know you've heard that term for several years. The COVID-19 pandemic, though, has really accelerated that for all the emergency services across Chester County. And we're here today with our group to discuss that with you kind of from each discipline. Get in here. Don taught me how to work this here, so. We want to remind you that fire and EMS is an essential service in Pennsylvania. The municipal government is responsible to designate a fire EMS provider and support that as well. We are facing tremendous challenges, which each of our disciplines are going to cover this evening. Hopefully most of you have heard them from your local agencies. And again, really the COVID-19 pandemic really sped this up for us, and we're having some skyrocketing costs right now that we need help with. And again, this has been going on for the better part of 2 decades, just really sped up over the last couple of years. Is anybody familiar with SR6? Has heard of SR6? Good. That's good. So the Senate and the House, both here in Pennsylvania, identified that fire and EMS are in crisis, and this was before the pandemic. So it is documented by the Pennsylvania legislature. Some quotes in there that EMS is woefully underfunded, referencing local officials too need to become more engaged, more involved, interact with their fire and EMS agencies to work towards a sustainable solution for all of us. So SR6 was published in 2018. We did contribute. Several representatives from Chester County were part of SR6. There were 27 published recommendations that came out of that. That's a great document. You can simply Google it. I'm sure Don could provide it to you if anybody wanted it, and Don will introduce himself in a little bit here. But really good stuff in there, and a lot of really good recommendations that we're looking to get implemented statewide. Did anybody see this edition just recently? We had some contribution to this as well locally in Chester County. So this is part of the reason we're here tonight. We're looking as a regional group to discuss this with you and then help you work towards solutions with your local agencies. So is anybody familiar with Chester County's Fire and EMS Strategic Plan? So published in 2020 here, the Chester County Fire Chiefs Association, EMS Council, Fire Police, Chester County Department of Emergency Services, all partnered and had this study done specific to Chester County here with 139 recommendations. This group is tasked with figuring out the roadmap to implement those recommendations in the county. And we're going to talk about some of them here tonight. So you all should have a handout that introduces all of the presenters here this evening. They're going to introduce themselves as they come up here as well. But we have some active municipal leaders, fire and EMS providers up here. All from diverse areas of the county, diverse backgrounds, so we really feel we bring a lot to the table as a unique group to help deliver this in a regional. And the good news is we are not selling anything tonight. All we're selling is our knowledge. So we're going to hopefully set up some appointments with some of you if you're interested in hearing from us and see how we can help regionally. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Chief A.J. McCarthy to discuss the fire services.
Thank you. So I'm from Longwood Fire Company. I protect the greater Kennett region. Actually, the Mendenhall sits in our primary first 2 territory. So we span 2 school districts and a couple municipalities. So recruiting and retaining volunteers, my department is a combination department, so I have career staff that primarily work during the daytime where I don't have volunteers that are available. And we have a majority of the nighttime calls and weekends are covered by volunteers. So the areas that we suffer and we see from are typically if you can recruit a volunteer, they stay about 3 years. And in that 3 years, we have to invest quite a bit of money to train them, outfit them. So figure if they come in by the 17 as a junior and they spend 2 years in their 18 and 19, they're allowed to enter fires. And then typically, once it's time for our members around here to start to live on their own, they have to move out of the Kennett area because it's so expensive to try to buy a house. So, fresh out of college, really can't afford a $500,000 or $600,000 townhouse, so we lose people through that. We also kind of noticed, the fire departments were kind of the social center of your community 20, 30, 40 years ago. That's not really the case, especially now that you have smartphones and everything else where you can reach out and touch someone real fast. They're not the social centers anymore. So people are less inclined to volunteer because there's just better things that you can do. But being a volunteer, at Longwood, you could expect to probably spend about 20 hours a week at least between answering calls, training, and then if you start getting into the actual operations. So we have a lot of dual role members. So you have people that ride a fire truck, are on the board of directors. We don't have an auxiliary, so we don't do the barbecues and things like that. They are not productive fundraising components. That worked a long time ago. I have a gentleman that rides a fire truck, rides an ambulance, and does administrative work. He could be there 40 hours or more a week as a volunteer. Call volumes, everything continues to go up. If you're from around this area or if you have been paying attention, it's growing pretty fast. There's a lot of events here which we're required to protect. But 2 years ago, we were running about 700 fire calls a year. This year, we're projected to finish somewhere between 12 and 1,400. That's a pretty big jump. We've done some restructuring in our area, but that's all extra burden. So if you think about it, typically what they say is if you have a volunteer that rides a fire truck more than once a day, you're starting to impede on his personal life to where it becomes cumbersome. And we do have people that just get to the point where they say, I just don't have the time anymore. We have a 2-income house. I have 2 little kids, or if you get into school and they have sports, I just can't do it. So as township supervisors, you expect as if you're providing tax dollars to them when you pick the phone up, somebody comes every time. That doesn't always happen. And it's really important that you educate yourselves that just because a fire truck shows up and looks like it's doing something right, it may not. It may not have enough people on it or enough crew. The flip side is volunteers. I have 6 municipalities that we protect. Ours are very supportive. That we work with them in kind of a council of governments form. But in the beginning, it was like, well, why do you guys need money? Right, you're volunteer. Well, their time is free, but everything else costs money. We have an electric and a gas bill, just like township buildings and houses. The bigger thing that we're talking with our municipalities are inflation and your consumer price index do not apply to our industry. Our apparatus manufacturer has increased the price of their vehicle by 27.5% in the last 11 months. And I was told yesterday that there's probably another 12% increase coming in February, and they're taking 3 years to get. So a truck that cost, we bought a truck in 2016 for about $670,000 is well over $1 million now. We just don't have the funds for it. I'm not going to get into the EMS conversation, but we don't generate revenue. We don't bill. It's strictly either township contributions or fund drives. So it's really important that the fire companies and the municipalities work together to try to solve essentially what are 2 crises: a financial and a person crisis. So, Chaz, I'll give it back to you.
Thank you, AJ. So one of the biggest issues that hopefully you're all aware of is our expenses are far outpacing our revenue. We rely on payers such as Medicare, Medicaid, private insurance. Medicare, Medicaid is fixed, so the government tells us what they're going to pay us. We have no say in that. There was an announcement that came out today from the Department of Human Services that Medicaid is increasing in Pennsylvania next year for ambulances, which is great. but it's $100 more. So it helps a little bit, but it's not that impactful solution that we need. In addition, as Chief McCarthy mentioned, the personnel side of this, paramedics and EMTs through COVID really left this field drastically. So we have more jobs than we do paramedics and EMTs right now, which is driving a wage war that is hurting all of us financially. So they deserve to make the money they're making. They probably deserve to make more. We're having a hard time funding that, though, to make sure we retain our people and then recruit new people as we go. Municipal responsibility here. So I often hear, and I'm responsible for this quote, so you can throw stuff at me. Someone else should fund this. This is somebody else's problem. I always hear the county should, the state should, the government should. Unfortunately, that's not going to happen. The solution here is really between us, between your fire and EMS agency. Oh, Don, you got a plug for this? We'll try to make it here. So I got a low battery thing. So we really, again, this group wants to work with you and kind of help facilitate conversations with your local fire and EMS agency, as well as implement some of the recommendations in our regional study here. So let that go. Okay. All good. We might lose our PowerPoint here, but we'll keep rocking through this. So all good.
All better.
Okay.
Emergency services.
See? So one of the other things our EMS agencies are hearing is, the amount of money we need supported by the townships no longer fit in your budgets, no longer fit in your general fund. So we don't feel it's our responsibility to stand in front of you and tell you need to add new taxes. We had a good discussion at West Whiteland last night about this. It's not our job to tell you how you should fund it. We just want you to know that that option exists, and we can help get you the resources to connect you to other townships that have successfully done this, if that's an option you want to consider. I think that is it for me on my side. I'm going to turn it over to our fire police here.
How we doing? I don't think anybody else asked how everybody's doing. So I'm Brandon Michaels. I'm the president of the Chester County Fire Police Association. For those that are unfamiliar with fire police, they're sworn-in members of the fire department that will direct traffic around an emergency scene. Usually the people you'll see out on the roadways in the vests. They also assist with non-emergency events, crowd control, etc. So obviously we have some of the same challenges as far as staffing is concerned from the volunteer side, because there is definitely no career fire police officers. They're all definitely 100% volunteer. But with that, obviously we have needs. So you need vests, you need hats, you need badges, you need radios, you need flashlights, etc. And most of that funding is coming from relief. So the fire department relief, that's where most of the fire police stuff comes from. But it's not a dedicated cost, I guess you could call it, from the municipalities. So you're getting fire EMS budgets, but fire police kind of just fits in there wherever they can have something extra. So obviously that's one of our pieces there, is just getting more dedicated funding for the fire police at the departments. Also, when we're at calls, especially major incidents, we're looking for PennDOT, local department works to help us with traffic control. So use the example, we had a call about a month ago that one of our departments was at 202 for hours. I'm talking 8+ hours, and they called PennDOT, no response. So after the call, they found out that PennDOT said they didn't have enough people to help them, and at that point the call was over. But we look for that connection between us and PennDOT and then the local public works folks to really kind of supplement the staffing that everybody else is talking about here when we're on the roadway. Finally, the one piece is standardized dispatch. So right now, depending on how a department is set up with their dispatch protocol, fire police would have to be dispatched separately if you're going to a neighboring department, versus if a fire truck's going to another call, they just kind of everybody can go, versus right now, fire police have to be separately dispatched. Other than that, well, I'm good. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Paul Mullen. I'm the president of the Board of Commissioners for Calhoun Township. as well as a board member for CCATO. And I get to talk about the local government challenges that we have. As a local township official, we all must understand that we are responsible for the level of emergency service protection that is provided for our communities. The closure of Brandywine Hospital in the beginning of the year and the recent shutdown at Tower Health Medic 93 basically was a devastating blow for our township as well as the surrounding communities. And as you have heard, our local EMS services are struggling with the larger areas to cover, longer transport routes, along with a list of other hurdles, talking about the volunteers versus paid help, that ultimately affect the response times and proper care for our residents. We as township officials must evaluate and determine how we can assist our fire and EMS services. Education will be the key in determining what is best for your township and community. Invite your local EMS and fire representatives to your public meetings so they are part of this process. During your discussions, you may find a fee is necessary to maintain these essential services. What will be a fair and reasonable cost that will not be a burden to your residents? During your discussions, you may find other solutions that work better for your township. It all starts with a conversation. At Count Township, we actually held a public meeting to ask questions directly to our EMS providers, and we were very impressed and surprised from the conversation. I feel we all walked away with a better understanding of the importance of these services and the struggles both sides are experiencing. We open lines of communication, and this will help in solving this crisis. Now, as township officials, remember these services that you require for your residents, that are required. Review monthly and annual performance reports to ensure your residents are receiving the best possible care. Now, after this presentation, I know we would all love to have township officials come on up and let us know about your experiences. What measures you have taken that have helped improve your situation, or even some ideas that didn't work out the way you thought. But it's all part of this process. All right, and on the last note, the health and safety of our residents is priority. All right, let's keep this in mind as we work together towards our sustainable solutions. All right, and I'll hand it back to Chaz.
I want to introduce next Don Northam. So Don is our project manager, and we actually were able to get federal grant money to support Don. Don keeps us on task, keeps us very organized, keeps us moving in our project here with our Fire and EMS Strategic Plan. So I want to thank certainly Chester County for facilitating the grant funding to bring Don on our team here. And let me introduce Don.
Thank you, Chaz.
7 years ago, I moved to Pennsylvania at last. I moved here from New Jersey, so you can imagine my joy. I started by coming over to, I had a job consulting with the Turnpike, and I was living in New Jersey at the time. And as I drove west every week to come meet with them, right about the time I reached Reading, I felt all the East Coast tension leave my body. And I could actually hear the cost of living decrease. So I love me some Pennsylvania, and this has been a real privilege for me. I've told these guys this story. I'd like to tell you. I knew I could recognize a fire truck. I could usually tell the difference between that and the ambulance, but I knew next to nothing. One day, living in Hamden Township, right behind Wegmans off of Carlisle Pike in Mechanicsburg. And my office was in the basement of our house, and I heard my wife call my name. And it wasn't like, the normal way. It was like several octaves higher than normal. And she informed me that the house was filling up with smoke. So I ran upstairs, and yep, the house is filling up with smoke. And I said, all right, sweetheart, you go stand at the end of the driveway. I'll meet you there. I ran through the garage, through the main breaker on the house, had my phone in my hand, and while I was walking towards her, I dialed 911 for the first time in my whole life. And I don't know how long I was standing there, but it seemed like 2 minutes. And I looked down the road, and there's this guy walking towards me wearing jeans and a plaid shirt. He's got a radio in his hand. And he comes walking up and says, "What's going on, neighbor?" And for the first time in my life, I met a volunteer firefighter who lived 4 doors down from me. 2 or 3 minutes after that, every appliance owned by Hamden Township was in my front yard. All of it. They brought the house. And there were 4 big trucks that even the fire chief showed up in whatever it is that he drives. And it took them about 45 minutes to figure out where the fire came from. We're fine, okay? The fire, I'll tell you so that you can all relax. A circuit breaker and the air handler in the attic caught on fire. And because the fans were convenient, it just sent the smoke through the whole house. And when I opened the breaker, the fire went out. But it's still, nope, I didn't want them to leave until we had a reason. It's like, how do you go back to bed in a house where you don't really know where that fire came from? And I got a lesson from the fire chief on not to put so many plugs in the same outlet. So the experience was complete for me. And everybody was fine, but I got a chance to meet the 8 people that showed up in my house. And every single one of them was a volunteer. And I said, oh, okay. I get it now. I mean, I've seen the cards every year that come out. I didn't know what a volunteer firefighter was, but now I do. And I'm sharing that with you so that maybe you don't need to have it happen to you to connect the dots the way it was for me. So I've really enjoyed getting to know these amazing people. And our assignment was to take a 140-page document that had 134 recommendations in it and figure out how to make that useful for you. Everybody in the room already knows this, but it took me a while to realize that the municipalities and the people are the only people who have the authority to do anything about this problem. The rest of us can talk about it and give advice, shout from the rafters, or come up like I am and telling you my testimony. But it's all you. And so we've been preparing for months to get ready to come and basically share this moment with you. Because, like it says on the slide, fire and EMS and the townships must work together to find sustainable solutions. That's taken right out of the September magazine. So here's our offer. We're not selling, we're making a free offer. We want to meet with you, either separately in groups, with or without your current service providers. Let's get together, and we're not going to just hand you a 140-page document with 132 recommendations and say, good luck, eat well and dress warmly. No, we're going to meet with you and find out what's on your mind. And on the basis of our experience and the fact that we've read 20 years of Senate resolutions and consultants, there's almost 200 recommendations that we've studied. We can come meet with you, find out what's on your mind, and we have people who have years of experience in delivering these services and also are current on what those who have come before us and studied this thing extensively, what they're saying can be done. So we're going to be done here in a minute. I'm just about to land. So how about that, huh? And in your chair, you have a list of who we are, and underneath the bottom of that is a form that you can use or not. We have a table over there, and we would love to chat with you. If you have specific questions about what's going on in your municipality, we'll be available to, well, they'll be available to answer those. If you want to have an appointment, get on the phone with each other, get on a conference call, and start talking about things. I'm the person to see on that. I'll take your contact information. You can tell me what your preference is for, what day of the week, what month, whatever, and we'll get together and talk about this. Now, here's what you can expect if you take the appointment. First of all, it's your agenda. We're not going to come in like the boys from Dover and tell you how to run your municipality. That's you. And first of all, we're going to listen and find out what you are already concerned about. And then if there's anything we have useful to say to help come up, like the magazine said, to come up with sustainable solutions, we'll search for those with you. You get a chance to talk these things out. So I'll be over at the table, taking names. If you want to have a call with us, check us out. Give it, you should be able to tell right away in the first call with us whether we've got anything to say that's useful for you. So, and we're eager to do that. So, that's our presentation. Like I said, I'll be over there. The rest of the experts will be up here if you have specific questions for them. If you're ready to make an appointment, find me. Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, does anyone have anything they want to add to their presentation as an example from a township? Briefly? Yes, come on up.
How are you, Mike Lynch? Good to see you. Hi, folks. Mike Lynch. I'm with East Goshen Township. Used to be hanging around East Bradford Township, but I'm now what they call retired. We've done a couple things in East Goshen Township. We're a population of about 18,000, and we still have big gaps in the requests for services. Chaz is involved with Good Fellowship that provides ambulance emergency services to us. This year in our budget, we have requests from emergency services, sans police, without the police, in increases of over $90,000. And it's all legitimate and it's all incremental. There's still big gaps, as we've learned, and we have a great relationship with our essential services and these folks. One of the things that's occurred in East Goshen over the last number of years is the Goshen Fire Company. We now have 10 plus or minus career firefighters. So we've already started to make the transition. We also have a terrific public works department. Members of the public works department are actively involved in fire service, chiefs, West Whiteland, others, and we provide a stipend to them each month for their volunteer service. In addition, when they're out doing a job in the community, road paving, sewer work, whatever it may be, there's at least one fire truck they take along. So there's a presence. It builds the community awareness of the fire service. It's worked out pretty well. Plus, it does help on the response times. So they're small steps, but coming back to the career firefighters, unless there's a big change in the dimension of what our demographics are and the stresses of young families typically that are in that acquisition stage trying to raise families, build their career, and the amount of demands of time, the volunteer, the Ben Franklin model is fading, and I hope it doesn't ever become obsolete, but these guys know the challenges to try and get people to commit and to have a sustainability of those that volunteer. So, I've often wondered whether the county would be able to interface, other than grant funding, down the road with, real fire service. One of my former supervisors, longtime supervisor by the name of Marty Shane, always felt that the county sooner or later was going to have to get involved in a bigger picture to help with fire service. I don't see that now. I don't know that there are any of those kind of conversations. It does come down to the municipal level. But, and I said to Chaz when I first came in, I said 2 words. I said crisis, which is the first screen, and also essential services. When you have something that's essential and you're in a crisis mode, action is really needed, and we're not going to be able to fill all these funding gaps right away, but the incremental approaches can't be ignored each year when these folks come to make presentations to us. So those are some thoughts that I had I want to share. Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, and I would like to say a few words on behalf of New Garden Township. I know we had a very adversarial position with the fire company for many years, and it was always over money. And we kind of dove in, we repaired that relationship. We increased funding. We have the fire chief and/or the fire marshal at our meeting to inform the public, because this is very real what they're presenting here. We spent $300,000 purchasing an ambulance. We're going to continue to support our local fire company's capital plan. So these are some things that I think municipalities have to do, because it's in our second-class township code that we have to provide these services. So that's all I have. Anyone else? Okay.
Steve, I've got
Yes.
a quick question for Chad.
Mhm.
Can you talk a little bit about what happened at, or what's going on with Christiana Fire Company and the ambulance division and so forth?
In Lancaster County?
Yeah.
I'm not as familiar, unfortunately, with the specifics, so I don't know if any of you gentlemen are, so unfortunately, I'm not familiar with what you're referring to. Regarding the Tower Health, part of that thing when Tower Health pulled the EMS units away, or?
Well, from what I understood, Christiana Fire Company's ambulance went under. The ambulance division went under, and they're now using private ambulance PLS service for their ambulance. I was wondering if anybody had any details.
I don't, unfortunately, on that, so I don't want to put them on the spot, but Harry, you have any familiarity with that situation, or? Let me introduce Deputy Director Harry Moore from Department of Emergency Services. He oversees the EMS side in DES, and he's the regulator in the room, so he probably knows well what's going on there. So, Harry. Yeah, you're welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. Since Christiana is obviously in Lancaster County, they're outside of our jurisdiction, but they have primary response area within Chester County, so we've tried to stay engaged with them as they've gone through their struggles. Christiana's ambulance, Christiana Community Ambulance, is a separate entity from the Christiana Fire Company, two separate entities. The ambulance company has been struggling with staffing for quite a while. They've gone out of service completely for a significant period of time, which has put extra stress on Chester County's EMS agencies, because not all of them, but our EMS units, Keystone Valley, Westwood, et cetera, are spending a lot of time covering calls in Lancaster County, which means patients are being transported to Lancaster County hospitals, which takes them out of service for even longer. So we've tried to stay engaged. My understanding is Christiana Community Ambulance has reached an agreement with WellSpan Health to provide staffing effective November 15th. That staffing is for daytime staffing, and their hope is to staff evenings and weekends with volunteers. I don't know what the status of their volunteer pool is currently, but that's the plan that's been relayed to me by their new EMS chief. We've offered to support them however we can, but at the end of the day, they're working with their municipalities in that region to find sustainable solutions as well.
So that would be BLS staffing.
Correct. Basic life support level staffing, yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, seeing no one else, if we can thank these guys for their presentation again. And certainly thank you for all you do.